Ever wondered what it would be like if Einstein, Steve Jobs, and your child's brain had a party? Welcome to the Neuroquirky Nexus, where we celebrate the extraordinary minds of our neurodiverse children. I want to welcome all of you amazing parents and caregivers to this podcast. This is for all of you navigating the colorful world of neurodiversity. We're here to explore holistic, out-of-the-box solutions for your children and teens with ADHD, stress, anxiety, and other neuroquirks. Each week, we'll dive into practical brain-based techniques and quirky strategies to help your child thrive. I'm Lori Bloyer, a former veteran teacher turned holistic neurogrowth learning and life success coach. As a parent of a neurodiverse child myself, I've spent countless years researching, experimenting, and developing unconventional approaches to support these unique minds. I myself have ADHD, diagnosed later in life, and I really look forward to sharing with you tips, tricks, and strategies to help you and your child thrive and help us all connect to the wonders of your child's neurodiversity. So, let's get quirky. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Neuroquirky Nexus. So glad to have you here with us today, as always. On this episode, it's part 2 of what we were talking about last week, which was that words matter. We talked about the importance of words and reframing some ways that people speak to us about our neuroquirky kids and the ways that we speak to ourselves about our kids and our parenting. We also talked about talking to your child's teacher or teachers if they have several. And then we ran out of time. That was long enough. So we're picking up now with part 3 or segment 3 of our previous week. All right. Are you ready to get quirky? Let's go. So in this segment, I want to talk about educating friends, family, and the community, giving more practical tools and guidance. So the wider circle of influence when raising a child with ADHD, it's not just the school environment that matters. Your child's friends and family members and the wider community also play an essential role in shaping their experience. Unfortunately, many people still misunderstand ADHD or have outdated beliefs about what it means. In this segment, we're going to explore how you, as a parent, can subtly educate those around you to create a more supportive and informed network for your child. It's not about lecturing or forcing change. It's about planting seeds of understanding. And so, before we dive into ways to educate others, it's important to acknowledge that people come from different backgrounds and may hold varying beliefs about ADHD. Some people may see it as a discipline problem, while others may believe it's not real at all. Understanding their perspective doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but it does help in figuring out how to approach the conversation without making them feel defensive. For example, older generations might say things like, "In my day, we didn't have ADHD," or "that kid just needs to learn to sit still." In fact, not just older generations, but some teachers say this too, or people in restaurants, right? These comments can be frustrating. I know, I've been there. But they often come from a lack of understanding rather than a place of judgment. By meeting people where they are, you can gently guide them toward a better understanding of your child's unique needs. So let's do it. Let's change society through this one little podcast. We got this. One of the most effective ways to subtly educate others is by sharing real-life examples. This makes the conversation less theoretical and more personal. Instead of explaining ADHD in clinical terms, share a story about your child that highlights both their challenges and their strengths. For instance, you might say, "The other day, my child was so excited to tell me about something they learned in school that they interrupted me a few times. It can be hard for them to wait their turn, but that same enthusiasm is what makes them so curious and eager to learn. We're working on ways to channel that energy more effectively. How beautiful is that way to phrase it, yeah? I know when you're heated in the moment, though, it's going to be hard to remember such words, so let's try to find ways to remember how to speak in a reframing type of way, right? Words matter. So by focusing on both the challenge, the impulsivity, and the strength, the enthusiasm for learning, you're helping others see that ADHD is complex. It's not just about disruptive behaviors. This also helps people understand that ADHD is not something your child can control or turn off, but it is real. A little tip for you, when sharing these examples, it's important to avoid making your child feel like they're being discussed in a negative light. Keep the tone positive, and if your child is present, make sure they understand that you're celebrating the strengths while acknowledging areas of growth. I remember when I was a child and my mom used to say, just pay attention, pay attention. And it would make me feel so bad because I really was trying to pay attention, but I just also felt so daydreamy and I didn't know, and she didn't know what ADHD was at that time. But it definitely has stuck with me to the day. Pay attention, pay attention. Sometimes it is hard. So definitely trying to talk about that positive and really, really frame your conversations around strengths rather than challenges. When talking to family members or friends who may not fully understand ADHD, compassion is key. You don't want to come across as defensive or confrontational, as that can shut down the conversation before it even starts. Instead, approach it as a learning opportunity for everyone involved, remembering that you also really are being a role model for your child and you want them to see how you're talking about it so that you can model that for them when they talk about it with their friends or their teachers or later on in life when they don't have you around. So for example, though, with the family, if a family member says something like, why can't your child just focus during dinner? You could respond, I know it can be hard to understand for kids with ADHD. Sitting still and focusing during meals can be really challenging because their brain is wired to seek out more stimulation. We're working on strategies to help him, like giving him a fidget tool or allowing movement breaks. This response educates without shaming the other person. It acknowledges their concern, but also provides context that helps them understand ADHD better. By offering a specific solution you're using at home, you can give them a glimpse how you're managing the situation without making them feel like they need to fix your child. Again, always modeling. This is all about modeling. One of the most powerful things you can do when educating others is shift their perspectives on ADHD. Many people see it as a deficit, but what if we framed or reframed it in a different way? To think that they have a unique brain wiring that comes with its own set of strengths and challenges. You might say something like, well, ADHD isn't just about difficulty paying attention. It's about a brain that's wired to notice everything all at once. That means my child might struggle with focusing in one task, but it might also mean that they're incredibly creative and often come up with ideas that other people wouldn't think of. What a wonderful world we have, that we have so many diverse brains in this world. It's amazing. I love it. I love it. I hope you are seeing that with this podcast. That's my big goal. So by presenting ADHD in this way, you're helping others see that while ADHD comes with challenges, it also brings incredible strengths. You're not asking for pity or excuses. You're asking for understanding of a different way of being. So a little tip here, you could avoid using overly technical language or jargon if you tend to go that route. Keep the conversation accessible and relatable. Most people aren't familiar with clinical terms like executive functioning or working memory. You might be now that you're into it, but I know when I first started, it was a whole bunch of gobbledygook and I did not understand. So instead of saying my child has poor executive function, you could say my child has a harder time organizing tasks, but with support, they can get the job done. It makes it easier for others to relate and understand. So let's be honest, though, there are a lot of misconceptions about ADHD floating around in society. You've probably heard things like ADHD is just an excuse for bad behavior, or it's caused by too much screen time. While these comments can be frustrating, there are also opportunities to educate. I wonder which ones you guys have heard. Which ones? Please chime in and let me know. I'd love to know what people have said to you and your child, maybe even right in front of your child. When someone says ADHD is just an excuse, you might respond with, I can understand why it may seem that way, but ADHD is actually a neurological condition. It affects how the brain processes information and controls impulses. It's not about a lack of discipline, trust me. I know. It's about learning different strategies to manage these impulses and stay on track. If someone mentions screen time, you could say, screen time can definitely affect my child's attention, but ADHD is more complex. Even in environments without screens, my child's brain operates differently, right? It's wired differently. They were born that way. That's why we use strategies to help them focus, like breaking tasks into smaller chunks or giving them movement breaks. Another tip: avoid arguing or getting defensive. Instead, try to provide a calm, informative response that opens the door for further discussion. You're planting a seed. Over time, people will start to rethink their assumptions as they learn more. They may even ask you for help. They may even say, oh my gosh, that sounds like my child. Thank you for teaching me so that I can help my child. Oh, won't that be wonderful? Through reframing the way you think and you speak, now you're helping so many other children. Love it. Sometimes the most effective way to educate others is through small, everyday interactions. You don't always need to have a full-blown conversation about ADHD to make an impact. A simple comment or action can slowly change how people view your child's behavior. For example, if a friend sees your friend fidgeting or your child fidgeting during a quiet activity and comments, they can't sit still, you could casually mention, yeah, that's how they're wired. It helps them focus when they can move around a bit. Over time, people will start to associate your child's behaviors with their learning needs rather than with misbehavior. As long as there's guidelines, because there is a limit between letting them use their learning behaviors and just taking advantage. So you definitely have to make sure your parenting style is in check so that you're not just letting them walk all over you or the situation, but that they're doing what they need to do to regulate themselves. That's a huge difference. So, for example, at family gatherings, if a relative comments about your child's hyperactivity, you might say, they've got a lot of energy today. We found out that letting them take a quick walk helps them refocus when they get restless. This approach normalizes their behavior without turning it into a big issue. So those are some examples for the hyperactive side, yes? And I could give many more examples. I know we have a lot of components to ADHD, but hard to fit it all into our short podcast. Thank goodness we have lots of weeks to talk about neurodiverse children and how to work with them. And now a word from our sponsor, Success Coaching. If your child has ADHD, you've probably heard all the typical advice. Create routines, use discipline, or try medications. But what if there's a better way? Please go ahead and get my free 3-part video series. It's like a little mini course. Small 15-minute-ish videos, and you will discover in the videos the hidden secret to calming hyperactivity with simple sensory tools.
why rigid routines aren't the answer and what you can do instead. And executive functioning skills can be taught, they're not fixed. These natural, easy to implement strategies can transform your child's ability to focus, stay calm, and feel confident, all without medication. Are you ready to dive in? Grab the series now and start seeing the results at home. And you can find that series at www.nexus-mastery.com/ADHD secrets. That's nexus-mastery.com/ADHD secrets. And let's unlock your child's true potential, one video lesson at a time. See you there. Now let's get back to our episode.
So another great way to subtly educate others is by involving them in your child's solutions. When friends or family members see how certain strategies help your child thrive, they're more likely to understand the nuances of ADHD. For example, if you're at a family event and your child is struggling to follow instructions, you might say to a relative, "We found that giving them one task at a time really helps. Could you help by being really clear and give a simple task to start with?" This shows them how to communicate effectively with your child, and it also educates them about one of the challenges kids with ADHD face: following multi-step instructions. So bring the dish to the kitchen, then come back and get another dish, or small, simple. Instead of a big one that gets me, "Clean your room." No, you don't want to say that, right? You want to say, "Could you please put away your pink socks?" We talked about that, I think, in episode 1. Another example I could share: when a friend sees how a sensory break or specific routine helps your child calm down, it can shift their perspective from seeing ADHD as a problem to understanding it as a manageable condition with specific needs. You have the power to set the tone for how others perceive and interact with your child. When you model acceptance and understanding, you give others permission to do the same. If someone expresses frustration or confusion about your child's behavior, respond with patience and understanding. Again, modeling for your child, as well as your own internal regulation. I know it can be frustrating when they can't sit still, and maybe even embarrassing, but that's just how their brain works. We're working on ways to help them manage their energy, but it's a process. And you can tell others that they're making progress. Please, in front of your child, really that supportive, positive conversation. So by talking to others this way, you're modeling the kind of acceptance and patience that you want others to have. Over time, this creates a ripple effect. When some people see how you handle your child's ADHD with grace, they'll be more likely to approach the situation with empathy rather than judgment. And finally, remember that every conversation you have is part of a larger movement toward greater understanding and acceptance of ADHD. When you educate friends, family, and community members, you're contributing to a broader shift in how society views ADHD. Each conversation is an opportunity to change not only how your child is seen, but how others with ADHD are perceived as well. How wonderful that is that you're making change. So by subtly educating friends, family, and the community, you can create a more informed and supportive environment for your child. It's not about forcing others to change their views overnight. It's about planting seeds of understanding and helping them see ADHD not as a deficit, but as a different way of thinking. The more we educate, the more we can break down the stigma and build a world where kids with ADHD and all neurodiversities are seen for their strengths, not just the challenges. Okay. As we close this episode and wrap it up on these 2 episodes about reframing and words matter, I really want to emphasize that the journey to changing perceptions about ADHD is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Shifting mindsets, whether those are of teachers or parents or friends, families, society as a whole, it takes time. It's important to be patient, both with yourself and with others, and of course, your child. Educating the people around you, one conversation at a time, plants the seeds of understanding that will grow over time into real, meaningful change. As parents, your role as advocates for your children is invaluable. By gently guiding teachers, caregivers, friends, and family and community around your child, you're shaping more empathetic world for them. It's through your efforts that others will begin to see ADHD not as something to fix, but as a way of thinking and interacting with the world. The more we can normalize the conversation around neurodiversity, the more we can break down the stigmas that often hold children back and really release them for the future and success in the future. Like we talked about before, the celebrities and many, many others that have neurodiversities that are incredibly famous and successful. So we really want to celebrate progress, no matter how small. It's easy to feel like the weight of changing perceptions is all on your shoulders. But remember that even small wins are significant. If a teacher tries a new strategy that works well for your child, celebrate that because it probably is working for most of the class as well. If another parent learns something new about ADHD from your conversation, appreciate that moment of growth. Progress may be incremental, but every small step adds up to bigger shifts over time. So let's work on fostering a community of understanding, keeping in mind that you're not alone on this journey. There's a growing community of parents, educators, and advocates out there who are working to create a world where ADHD and neurodiverse conditions are understood and accepted, me included. I really want to get the word out and help as many parents as I can. By being part of this movement, you're helping to foster a network of support and understanding that extends far beyond your immediate circle. Each conversation you have, each time you advocate for your child, you're contributing to this broader community effort. And of course, we want to empower our children for the future. Most importantly, you're helping your child develop that confidence to advocate for themselves. By modeling these subtle but impactful conversations, you are empowering them to one day have these discussions on their own. They will grow up with the language, self-awareness, and strength to advocate for their needs and be proud of their neurodiverse identity. I know my son is. When we shifted from you have dyslexia or ADHD or anxiety, what are you going to do about it, to, wow, this is my superpower. My brain is unique and wonderful and amazing. The weight that shifted off our shoulders was, I can't tell you, please do it. It will help you so much. You're not just educating others, you're setting your child up for long-term success in navigating a world with ADHD or other neurodiversities. So I just want to encourage you to take one small action this week. This is your to-do, right? Our little activity at the end. Could you take one small action this week, whether it's having a conversation with a teacher, reaching out to another parent, posting something on Facebook, since this is ADHD Empowerment Month. They're changing it from awareness to empowerment, the inner dialogue. So you could even post something about that. Sharing a personal story that highlights your child's strengths. Know that every effort counts. It's these moments that slowly but surely change how others see and understand ADHD. So we have covered a lot in these last 2 episodes. If you didn't hear the first one, please go back. Next week, we'll be picking up with a new topic. There's so many things I want to talk about. I can't decide yet, but probably about emotional regulation is what I feel like I need to talk about next and helping with that. So thank you for listening and for being such a powerful advocate for your child. Remember, you're not alone. We're here for you. My coaching is here for you. Other parents are here for you. Social media support and the groups. And actually, I've started a new Facebook group. So I'd love you to come on over. It's surprisingly named Neuroquirky Nexus, the name of this podcast. So come on over and join us in the Facebook group. I'd love to have you there for additional support, tips, tricks, resources, and other community to help you. So keep spreading awareness, planting seeds of empathy, and together, all of us, we can help reshape the narrative around ADHD and other neurodiversities into one that celebrates the unique strengths and abilities of our amazing kids and their extra amazing brains. Count yourself lucky to have a kid with an amazing brain. And the struggle is real. I know it is. I've been there myself and with my child and with the thousands of kids I've taught. But if you can just keep remembering their amazing brain, they have an amazing brain. Thank you so much for joining me in the Neuroquirky Nexus. Remember, your child's brain isn't just different, it's extraordinary. In the Neuroquirky Nexus, every quirk is a connection waiting to be made. So stay quirky, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Neuroquirky Nexus. We are so glad you took the time to join us today. I know time is precious, and we are so glad you're here. I hope you got a lot out of this episode. Please don't forget to post your activity using hashtag NeuroNexus. That's NeuroNexus. And of course, all links are in the show notes. And I just really hope you enjoyed it. So if you did, please like and subscribe and share this with a friend. I think this is really good for families that are new to their child being diagnosed with ADHD. And I believe that the tips and tricks and resources I'll be sharing will be very helpful for all families, but especially new families. And finally, I am creating a workshop coming up to help families with ADHD finding and using a holistic, natural approach in support of a book chapter that I'm writing and articles and magazines that are coming out. But my workshop, I'm so excited about because I can work with you all one-on-one. If you have any suggestions, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you again. And remember, let's keep it quirky. See you next time.